This is a brief video that I thought would be very useful to show you how an aperture works on a camera and a shutter works on a camera. Now, our DSLR, our digital cameras, do all of this via electronics, so we can't really show you very easily to the camera how an aperture or a shutter works. So I've got a better way of doing it. I've decided to show you using some of the old film cameras that we have, and they will allow us to see very easily how a shutter works. We can see it visually by opening and closing, and we can also see how an aperture works. So let's start off with a aperture, and we're going to show you how an aperture works, which is a number of blades which open and close like our iris of our eyes. So here we've got a lens which has the aperture manually built into the camera, and if I turn it like this, you can see the aperture blades opening and closing. They are little blades, they're about 9 or more, and when the aperture is a very small number, and in this case it's 1.7, it allows a lot of light through, as you can see right there. And if I close the aperture to a larger number, f22, you'll see that the apertures close down quite nicely to the smallest. So you can hardly see it, I think, just there. If I do that, you can just about see the aperture just there, f22. And we open it up, it allows more light through. So just to reiterate, here we have an old lens which has the aperture ring on there, which is a manual one, and we can turn it from a large number to a small number. So that's 1.7 to 22. Now, because these are digital cameras, as I said, they're all done within the camera, and it relies on battery powers in order to operate. So it's very useful to be able to show you on an old school lens how the aperture works and the blades work. So that's the aperture. Now, I'll just take the lens off here as well. Now, what I'd like to show you next is how a shutter works. And again, on all of our DSLRs at this college, we have all our shutter speeds and everything are visible inside, and we adjust them using dials on the cameras. So it's very handy to show you on an old school one where you can actually visually see the shutter speed on the top dial just here. So at the moment it's set at 0.02 of a second, which is really good to freeze fast moving actions from football to motorsports, anything in between sort of thing. This is a really good shutter speed. Now, our modern cameras go up to shutter speeds which are probably about 5,000 or 8,000th of a second. They go to very fast speeds. But at the moment we've got a 2,000 here, so I can actually show you what it looks like when it goes 2,000s. Now, the shutter speed will also go all the way down to 1 second just there. So I'll show you the differences. And what's great about using one of these old school type cameras is that you can see right through where the film would normally be, but we haven't got a film, so we can open it up. This is the actual shutter just here, and if we turn it around the other way, you'll see that's the mirror just in there, which of course I'm not putting my fingers anywhere near because I don't want to damage it. If I put the reflection just there, you can see just the mirror just there. Now, if there was a film here, it would be exposing the light through here onto the film at the back. Now, we use digital cameras, so there's no film, of course, but there is the sensor, which is just behind. So if I do an exposure using there, you'll see that the mirror bounces up very quickly and the shutter opens. You won't see it because it's very fast, but there you go. That's 0.02 of a second. I don't know. Now, if I change it to 1 second, then you'll probably be able to see the straight through the shutter and the mirror as they go up, and you'll see my top. Just there. So that's 1 second. Now if you're taking photographs at 1 second, it means it's a very slow exposure, so any camera shake will basically ruin your photograph, and any movement that you are trying to take pictures of at that time will be very, very blurred. Okay, so that's a 1 second exposure. Let's just turn it round to, oh, I don't know, let's turn it round to 60th of a second. You might be able to see this one a little bit better. Oh, I have to wind it on, pretending I'm about to take a picture. There you go. And I'll bring it round to 1/8 of a second. There you go, 1/8 of a second. And then back to 1 second. Now with these cameras, it has a setting called bulb. This is where you can control how long it's open for. So, I might just press myself back a bit, and you'll be able to see the mirror just there, and when I press the button, it'll fully open to reveal my top. So that's B. Okay, you wouldn't really need to use that very much, but it shows you how a mirror pops up and a shutter opens very quickly. Now, as I said, with our modern DSLR cameras, it is all digital. You cannot adjust the shutter speed from the lens most of the time. And with our specific ones, they're all done through the dials on the back or dials on the top and that sort of thing, or dials here, depending on which camera. So if this camera wanted to be shutter priority, as previous videos, we put it into the S, and then we'd adjust looking through the shutter speed on the camera. If we wanted to be aperture priority, aperture priority, and then we can adjust the aperture by moving the dial just here. Okay?